All right, welcome. If you do not know who I am and you are new here, my name is Matt Petruso, and I have sold over $10 million in sales. I own a real estate investment company that basically runs on autopilot. And over the last 15 years, I've learned a few things about gaining control and freedom and just basically significance in my life. And I am making these videos to share what I have learned to help you gain a little bit of control, some significance and freedom in your life as well. So today I am going to be talking about how to actually become more valuable, right? The term of high value man is getting thrown around so often nowadays, and most people have no idea what that actually even means. It's just kind of a buzzword that most people talk about. But I'm going to actually share with you how to become more valuable and how to actually understand the two main differences of what people find valuable, like what is actually value, right? And I learned this many times over the years, but specifically, this was a scenario a few years ago when I was buying a property. It was it was actually two buildings. It was 4 units, two 3-bedroom apartments, and then another two 3-bedroom apartments in the town that I invest in. And when I'm going through the properties, I'm doing the due diligence, I'm meeting with the owner and my realtor, all this stuff, and we're talking about, like, it's a great location. There's four 3-bedroom apartments, right? And I'm asking, figuring out what the rents are, what the guy's charging, all this stuff. And it was, I don't even want to tell you, it was like what the guy was charging for rent was so small, it made no sense to me at all. I was like, how is this guy even charging this amount? Like, he has to be losing money. And what basically was happening was this guy had bought these buildings years ago. He was an older guy, and the peace of mind that he was getting from not having to increase the rent, because all of his tenants were long-term tenants, they'd been there for a long time. He hadn't increased the rent in like 20 years. It was ridiculous. So his value of his time, his energy, his peace of mind, right, was more valuable than the time, energy, and expenses that I would be willing to put in to increase the rents, right? So the financial value to me was different than his financial value on his emotional value, right? So these are the two things that you have to understand, that there's financial value and then there's emotional value. And you cannot always understand that they're the same. They're not the same for every person. Every person has a different a set value that they prescribe to something. And if you don't understand this, you will be trying to give people financial value that you deem as valuable, and you won't be able to communicate the value that you want to exchange that might be more important to you or to them at a certain time. So I was willing to exchange my time, my energy, and resources into making more financial value, because my peace, and I was able to manage the chaos that he didn't want to manage. So this was something that really kind of flipped my switch of how can I actually benefit from doing things and providing value in other ways to make his life easier, so I can get the financial value that I wanted at that time. And this goes for making money, this goes for relationships, whatever it may be. If you do not understand the attachment to the value that they prescribe to maybe their peace of mind, their emotional value, right? This emotional value to what you're exchanging for financial value. And basically under financial, like, that provides like security, that provides optionality, that provides travel. These are all things that are valuable, right? And the emotional side, everybody has a different perspective on what is emotionally valuable to them at that point in their life. And this is where it's very important to understand how these things work in your own life, right? If you understand how you find things valuable, then you can understand and empathize with other people how they deem something valuable and what you are able to provide that may be valuable to them at the point in life that they are at. And this is where you can be able to make money by providing value that somebody might have more time, I guess more money than time. So if you have more time, well, you're able to provide value to them because you're willing to do things that they don't want to do. Like at this point in my life, I I am more I have more money than maybe time. So if you're able to say, hey, I'm willing to put in X amount of time to do these types of things in exchange for the money, right? Well, you'd be like, well, why wouldn't they just do it themselves? Like I didn't want to like for instance, I didn't want to power wash my house, right? Because that just wasn't worth my time, right? I didn't want to do it. But there was a young kid that, I love young hustling kids because they know that they have more time than money. So they're willing to exchange their time to do something to provide value to me, right? And at different times in your life, you should get to a point where your time is more valuable than the money. And you will never get there if you do not understand this pure fact. And because at the beginning, life is always about an exchange of value. But if you do not understand the value of your own time, your own life, and in proportion to where you're at, right, there will never be a point where you are able to ascend up and then start being more valuable in different areas, right? And that is in your relationships, your life, your business, whatever it may be. The value that you prescribe to something is either going to be emotional or financial, and they do work together. But it's understanding that some people will have a higher value on emotional, things, and then some will have more on financial. And if you're able to kind of gauge that and then provide value in different ways, you will become more valuable. But it's being able to think a little bit deeper. Most people don't even think about this. They don't even understand what value is. They just hear it as a buzzword. But everything in life is an exchange of value. And if you ever get to a point where you feel like you are providing value to somebody that is not proportionate to what they are providing, what is going to happen is resentment will occur, right? And that is where the communication, like in my other video I talked about, is it being able to communicate appropriately. What value do you prescribe to this specific thing, and what do I prescribe? So if I, provide these type of financial things, like I am happy to provide the security, the money, all this type of stuff, but you prescribe, well, I provide the emotional stability, the peace, right? Well, how do we gauge that? What is the dollar amount or the value that we can have in fair exchange? A lot of times resentment comes when there's an uneven proportion of exchange of value that is not being met by one party or the other, and it's usually because it's not being communicated properly. So that's what, going back to the video that I talked about communication, proper communication will allow you to make sure that the value, whether it's financial, emotional, you at least understand where each person is at and what they value and what somebody else values. Because if somebody, this happens all the time, but I get messages often about trying to, make me more, give me more followers and make me more money and all this other stuff and make generational wealth, all this stuff. And it's like, they didn't even ask or even look into what I valued. They don't even know what I value. And most people just think that it's all financial, right? Like they think that money or value is just financial. No, like I value my peace. I value the growth that I'm going to have. I value the relationships that I have. I value the time that I have to make decisions on my own. They didn't even ask that. They just think everything, like the most shallow thing you will ever run into is if somebody just purely is trying to exchange value in money only. But we are not robots, right? You are not a robot. You have emotional needs. We all have different emotional needs, and we value things differently. So if you're able to understand what somebody else values, right, you are able to communicate more effectively, and you can move from A to B and now have a fair exchange of value. I know this is something that you are not taught. We are just taught like money is, whatever, and that's what we deem as valuable. But no, value is very, very multifaceted. Emotional and financial value is interconnected, but you must understand that different points of different people's lives and be empathetic towards their situation, and how can you provide value that will alleviate some emotional or financial burden on them to get what you want, right? That is how you become more valuable. So if this was helpful, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, MOVMATT, and I will talk to you on the next one. Peace.